Miss me right. Might as well. I'm walking through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong, don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. Yeah, we're lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page. But we still read that book, and we still run that race. Ay, Mississippi racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi racer riding out, till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Ay, red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are back. It's the morning show. I'm Gene. I'm sitting in for Chris while he's enjoying a nice trip down in Florida at the Disney extravaganza. I'm kidding. But I'm sitting in for Chris this morning. I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. And to my right, I got the man that's here every single day, bringing you the ones, the twos. He's not good. He's better. It's Mo better.
Hey, welcome, everybody. Thanks for dropping in, spending your morning with Gene and I. I'm just ready to get it, ready to go. There's so much to talk about. Let's do this.
Yeah, we got Will coming on shortly. We're going to talk about some basketball, some college basketball. You see the numbers from that women's college basketball game, Iowa, LSU, those numbers beat every NBA game last year except game 6 of the finals. That's incredible. Love it for women's sports. Love it for women's sports. We got two topics to talk about in women's college basketball. It is the popping topic right now. So we're going to get into it. And the first topic I want to get into is the Jemele Hill comments that the Caitlin Clark coverage is, she basically said it. It's racist because she's white. She's getting a lot more coverage than she would have got if she wasn't. I would love your opinion on that. I have a strong opinion on that. And y'all know, if anybody listens to me on a regular, I'm normally the person calling that out, right? I'm normally the person that says, this is A, this is B. I'll pause. I'll defer to you first here. And then I'll give my opinion, and then we might get Will. I think Will's got a strong opinion on this too. We'll hop Will right in.
So let me start by this. More times than not, I think Jemele Hill is right. On this particular subject, I think she's off base. I think she's wrong. I can understand if you want to make the comparisons to some of the truly gifted and great women's players of the past. In my mind, and maybe some and a few others, look, Cheryl Miller might still be the greatest woman player who ever set foot on the court. And even at her peak, she didn't receive the kind of coverage that Caitlin is getting. You can say that about a Taurasi. You can say that about the great Breanna Stewart. But that's not on Caitlin. Caitlin, to me, she's a product of the time that we are in. Sometimes things align just right. She is the right star in this moment that is taking the women's game, to me, in terms of attention, bringing in casual fans to a completely different level. Not to mention, just on a basketball level, Iowa's a very good team. They are a very well-coached team. But Caitlin Clark is one of one in the sense that she doesn't have a true running mate. It's her, a huge gap than the rest of her teammates. You look at these other big schools throughout the years, and in this season alone, everybody else has a second star. Some of them have a second and third and fourth star. She's a singular, dominant, transcendent player, and I don't think that the media is overblowing her. I think they're covering what they're seeing. You know when you see something special. If we had social media, if we had the kind of media coverage that we have today, the legend of Pistol Pete Maravich would be 10 times bigger now than it ever was in the past. Anything that's happening to Caitlin is deserved and earned. She's bringing attention to the women's game that's never been brought to the women's game. So, again, to my sister Jemele Hill, who I have tons of respect for, wrong on this one. Just flat out wrong. She happens to be white. But if Caitlin Stewart were black and she were doing all these things, to me, in my opinion, I still think we recognize a transcendent player. I think she would get great coverage. Look, to a lesser degree, Juju Watkins has gotten a ton of credit and recognition as a freshman. So I don't, sometimes you can call out it's about black or it's about white. I think calling out something that isn't there, it's unnecessary, and it sends the wrong message that Caitlin Clark isn't getting the attention she deserves just on her play, her talent, and her own merits. So I just disagree flat out with Jemele Hill.
So it's funny because you just cooked right there. And like everything that you said, I agree with. I'm going to add a little bit of sauce to the cook, but you cooked right there. That was perfect. Here's what I want to add to that, right? I think that there's a lot of things that go throughout the media that have racial tension behind them or issues behind them. I'll give you an example, right? The good versus evil of Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese, that's got derogatives of racism behind it. I can't stand that. I don't care how either player carries themselves. When it's Caitlin Clark, it's passion. When it's Angel Reese, it's, oh, she's showboating and she's doing A, B, and C. I have an issue with that, right? But I don't think, and listen, I've watched women's basketball for a long time. I don't think we've ever seen a star come across women's basketball like Caitlin Clark. I don't believe that. I think that it was like '84 when Michael came into his own in the NBA, and I compare Caitlin Clark to what Michael Jordan can be, and I really believe that. Like I honestly believe that this is the wave of women's college basketball that's gonna skyrocket the sport into the next generation. Let me give you a comparison that's not sports related, and it might sound funny. I compare the coverage around Caitlin Clark to the hype around Eminem, and I'll give you that example like this, right? I think Eminem is, if not the greatest rapper of all time, he's one of the greatest rappers of all time. His lyrical ability is incredible. We've seen a lot of white rappers come in that just fizzle out. Paul Wall, Bubba Sparks. You see that, right? So here's the comparison I'll give you. Yes, she probably gets a little bit more attention because she's white. I agree with Jemele on that. I think she gets a little bit more attention because she's white, but she has to be great and white to be able to get that attention. Will, I would love to hear your comments. We're going to throw Will right in. We don't have the Will button yet, but it's okay.
It's coming.
The NFL Genius button because I'm here today. Will, can I ask, do you think Caitlin Clark's getting too much conversation? Do you think it's a little too much? What's your thoughts on this?
I disagree with Jemele as well. She's deserved everything that she's gotten to this point. She's performed on the court. She's been exemplary off the court for far as I know of. So I disagree with Jemele. I think a lot of this with Jemele too is to also sort of kind of to stay relevant, so to speak, since she left ESPN, which is why I think she says a lot of what she says. But I disagree on this. And guys, if you think Caitlin Clark's getting all this, wait till you see Juju her sophomore year. Wait, you're gonna see Juju get so much attention it ain't even funny. You already see that girl's head and shoulders above the rest.
Listen, Will, I completely agree with you. I think that she deserves the coverage she's getting. And I think Juju Watkins is going to get very, very similar coverage, if not bigger, because she's only a freshman. To think that she averaged 27 points a game as a freshman, and she's going to play 3 more years. USC is going to pay her more than that. Guys, I said this the other day, and I'll say it again. I just take a guess. Do you know what the largest contract in the WNBA was last year? The most money made last year.
Wasn't it like 250,000?
You're almost exactly right. It's 248. That's spot on. I'll take 250. You're dead right. And I think that $250,000. I think Caitlin Clark got something like $3 million this year from Iowa. So these college basketball players are going to stay there as long as possible, because if you're selling out 37,000 people at Iowa, they're going to pay you to sell out.
Exactly.
The coverage of that game was incredible.
Exactly.
And we got to talk about the other half of the game, right?
Another thing too I want to bring up. Angel, Caitlin, and then Juju goes in there. I think we might finally see women start to support the WNBA, and that's been its biggest problem. Women don't support the WNBA. Men support the NBA. We stand behind Dak's success, but women don't stand behind the WNBA because there's really no interest there for them. But now that you have 3 stars that's coming to you, I think you're gonna see a ramp up, and I think they're gonna have to start paying out that money some type of way to keep these ladies from going overseas, or whatnot.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I want to address real quick Cottrell's comment. He said transcendent talent for sure. She's more a Steph than MJ. I get that comp because of her 3-point game. I do. And I think that like as a player comp, Steph is the more, I guess, comparable player. Let me tell you why she's more like Michael. Not only is she scoring the basketball at a ridiculous level, she is dominating the game. They're putting their whole defense to stop her. She's passing the ball. She's rebounding the ball. And to me, she plays very good defense on the other end. She's doing things that no other college women's basketball player ever did. I think Maya Moore is the closest comp. I really do, as far as on the women's level. But I kind of want to move towards the other side of the coin with Angel Reese. Now, Angel had her press conference, and I know you guys addressed the game yesterday, but I want to address the presser for a minute. And she got emotional, and she talked about the things that she deals with. And I feel two sides about this, right? Like one side of me is like, why aren't you the same person throwing the L's up at UCLA, the trash talk? Like, I know the competitor you are on the floor. And when you win, it's here's my ring. It's here. I'm great. I'm this. You can't see me. I feel like she's gotten way more criticism than she should. I feel like the death threats are absolute disgusting part of this. And I think that the things that are happening to her that aren't basketball related or aren't basketball conversations that are race related and things like that are disgusting. But with that being said, I do think that just a little bit of the basketball conversation as far as the villainizing, she did kind of bring on herself because she is a trash talker. She does. And look, Michael Jordan embraced the villain role. Kobe Bryant embraced the villain. They wanted to go in your city and dominate. And I think Angel Reese embraced the villain role when they were winning. I do have a little bit of an issue with the victim mentality towards the game of basketball. I don't have any issue with her speaking out about her feeling like a victim with these I'll call it what they are, scumbags, messaging her death threats and racism and the comments that they say about her. So that's why I say I kind of a mixed reaction on this. I would love to get both of your reactions. Mo, what's your thought?
I think you laid it out almost perfectly how I was thinking in my head. I'm watching the press conference in real time, and while I can see the weight that she has on her shoulders when she's dealing with the things that she's dealing with, because the attacks aren't really even about her as a basketball player. They're attacking her on a personal level. They're trying to put her in a box of what they perceive her to be. A lot of them are racially motivated. They are disgusting, inexcusable attacks. So you could feel the emotion coming off of her as she was breaking down, and I felt for her in that moment. I did. Look, I guess I'm a softie. I felt for her, but at the same time, when you're winning and you're flaunting your hair and you're letting people know you're the Bayou Barbie and you're gonna be who you want to be, and you come out with that cocky, competitive nature, which, by the way, I admire. I admire that. When you lose, there's a part of me that wanted her to lose, if this makes any sense, the same way she wins. She could have been just as cocky, just as confident, but just said, you know what, Caitlin got us. She got us this time. They just were the better team tonight. will be back, something of that nature. So I'm not saying she is a sore loser in any way. I just thought that she could have dealt with what was going on a personal nature for her in one way, and then expressed how she felt towards Iowa and Caitlin Clark as a competitor in another way. And I thought she, instead of doing it separately, I thought she lumped it all together, and it came off as she was trying to be more victim than competitor who lost a very tough game. That was me. That's where I'm at.
Completely agree with you. Will, your thoughts on the Angel Reese presser?
To me, you have to be able to accept both sides of superstardom. You have to be able to accept the good and the bad and adjust to it. While the personal stuff does suck, it's uncalled for. No one wants to go through that. But in terms of the basketball side of things, you put yourself in that role of being the center of attention. You have to be able to handle it both ways. And like Mo said, if she went out there with a gracious loser, so to speak, lose with honor. Okay, they got us this time. What we gonna get them next time? If you would have said something like that and left the personal at home, not saying that the personal isn't important, but at that point in time, you're in the spotlight for basketball. So if you would have went out there, lost with honor, they got us this time, we're gonna get them next time, it would have been 100% better, I think, for her. She can handle the personal stuff later on down the road on her Twitter, on her TikTok. If she wants to handle those guys in that way on her platform, more power to her. But that presser was basketball. If she would have been a gracious loser, if she would have lost with honor, no one would have anything to say about it, I don't believe. But she didn't go out like that. And
Will, so like my point real quick, just to kind of
there's no victimhood in losing the basketball game. Go ahead.
I just want to put a bow on what you're saying, because like while I agree with what you're saying and while everything that you're saying is accurate, I still think she has a right to call out the people that and like, listen, I lost the Elite Eight game to go to the Final Four. It was probably my last college basketball game. I'm probably turning pro. I want to take this opportunity, this platform, to call out all these scumbags that are in my DMs that are making death threats. Like, part of me feels bad for that portion. So like, I don't know how to react to it. That's why I have such a weird reaction to it, because I think she has every right to call out the people that are saying those things. I just wish that those things were called out after the UCLA game too. I wish they were called out in wins and losses. Like, yeah, we won the game, and do you see what they're doing? And look, I hate Kim Mulkey. Can't stand Kim Mulkey.
Got so much bad going on right now.
But she was right.
She was
on the comments she made about UCLA's the presser behind. She was right about that.
Mm-hmm. She was.
We kind of wrap up that topic. We do have some NBA questions, and the one of them is selfish. I added this morning, right? This is a selfish question. This is a Gene selfish question. Last night, some would say the best basketball player in the world returned to action in Joel Hans Embiid. And look, he didn't give you 30 minutes. He gave you 28 minutes, gave you 24 points, gave you great defensive effort. I think he stripped Josh Giddey basically to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Looked decent, obviously a little out of shape. He's still like not out of shape, but like not in basketball playing shape.
Right.
But the 76ers beat the Thunder last night. And I know that they were missing SGA. I know they were missing, a couple players. They were. But the 76ers have about 5 games left to kind of solidify Joel into basketball shape before they make the playoffs. They're going to be in the play-in at minimum. They could take a shot at the 6th seed. I hope so, because there's nothing more I'd like to see than Philadelphia versus Cleveland, so I can have Cottrell crying and sending him home. But your thoughts on the return of Joel Embiid, your thoughts on, can the Sixers make a run this year if they don't finish as the 8th seed? I think we can all agree they draw Boston in the first round. That's a terrible draw for them.
It's a bad
That's a
matchup.
7 seed or a 6 seed. Do you think the 76ers can make a run with Joel Embiid back? I'll start with Will.
I think as a 7th or a 6th seed, they could. They can draw some noise because they're not. I don't think they'll be intimidated by anybody beneath Boston. But if you come up from that 8th seed to go against the Celtics, that's a terrible matchup for them all the way around. That's a terrible matchup. So if they can move up 6 or 7, yeah, they can make a little run. They can make a little noise.
Mo?
I think the Sixers are going to be the scariest lower seed in the East.
Yep.
Remember, before he went down, they were in contention to be the best team record-wise in the conference. They were right behind Boston. When you get Joel Embiid back, I mentioned this, I think, Gene, the last time we were on, his offense will come along. He's just a naturally gifted scorer. But what I'm looking for, the value he's going to give them is what he does for them defensively, what he does for them in dominating rebounding-wise. You saw it last night, even though he was clearly not in basketball shape, he made timely defensive plays. He made big rebounds. He literally did strip Getty in the open court to close the game out. I mean, that's what superstars do. And I'm consistent on this. Yes, Boston would be a bad draw. But anybody not named Boston, I'm going to favor the Sixers in that series.
I'm with you. I think the Philadelphia 76ers can make a deep playoff run. And I think that once you get them in a 4 or 5 or 6 game series, you'll get the conditioning. And, there's some new players there, right? Buddy Hield and Joel Embiid have not really played together, right? So, that's going to matter. Being able to get them, hey, where's Buddy going to be at? Joel's going to pass out the outlet. Kyle Lowry and Joel Embiid, you've seen it last night. Little dissension, little arguing about where someone should be. The turnovers are there. And I think that the 76ers can make a serious run this year. I'm excited about them. I'm glad that Joel Embiid is back. It's a selfish topic for me, but when Joel Embiid returns, we got to talk about it. Quick question for you guys. I kind of wanted to, and this has a lot to do with any of the big 3 sports, right? Out of all the big 3 sports, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, which sport do you think values numbers over achievements? So, do you think any of them value numbers over achievements? I think there's 100%, maybe 2, 1.5 out of the big 3. I'll start, and I'll kind of give you guys a parameter to go off of here. I think Major League Baseball values numbers over achievements. I think that very rarely do you hear, I think Derek Jeter would be the one player you can point at where you're like, oh, it's championship pedigree and he's just a winner. And they don't value his numbers as much as his achievements. Whereas someone like Ichiro or even Mike Trout, you value his numbers over his achievements. Baseball would be the answer there. But I do think there's a little bit in basketball. I don't think it's football. I think football achievements widely triumph because I think that numbers-wise, Dan Marino is a better quarterback than a lot of guys that are listed ahead of him.
True.
But because he didn't win, but I think it's 1.5. I'll say in basketball, it's a mixture. I'll say in baseball, it's a numbers thing. And I'll say in football, it's definitely an achievement thing.
Yeah.
Mo, what's your thoughts?
I agree with you on baseball, but I think it almost goes into another topic because when you look at the 3 major sports, baseball of the 3, there is this connection with the great players of today, the stars of the future, with the greats of the past. In baseball, I've heard guys like JG say this. I think I've heard you say it before, Gene, that baseball is the more traditional thing. It's a traditional sport. They hold true to the past. I think they revere their greats from the past much more than the NBA or football do. There's a connection there. So yes, the numbers do matter. People still will tell you what Sandy Koufax did, what Babe Ruth did. We talking about guys that played eons ago, but they're revered in a way in their sport for their accomplishments or for their numbers as well, that in the NBA, we don't do that. We do acknowledge numbers. I think numbers do matter in the NBA. I think you hit it on the head when you said 1.5. I think the numbers do matter to a degree in the NBA. There's a cutoff point, right? We can acknowledge a great player. You can be a Hall of Famer. But when people start talking about, well, just how great were you, your numbers alone will change the discourse of that conversation, because then we're going to say, but he didn't win. He didn't win anything, or he didn't do anything.
Right.
And I think that's when that conversation changes. And like you said, in football, it's completely different. They acknowledge the numbers, but they acknowledge the talent. We've said this. I've lost count how great a football player Dan Marino was, but nobody ever goes like, well, Marino didn't win. You know, he can't be great because he didn't win. But if you saw him play, if you saw who he played with, if you saw the lack of defense that he had pretty much his entire career, you know greatness when you see it. So to answer the question, I think it's definitely baseball and a little bit towards the NBA, but I think football, it's really more about achievements.
Well, before you go,
Sure.
I think in the NBA, it actually changed, because like most people's top 10 list, you see Bill Russell listed ahead of Wilt Chamberlain. And I think Bill Russell might be the most overrated player in the history of basketball. Not great, not an overrated human being. He's an amazing advocate for the sport. Be careful when I say this. You realize he never averaged 20 points a game, right? Like this is something that no one talks about. But like Bill Russell was better than Wilt Chamberlain. If you put a blind resume of their stats next to each other, it's laughable. Wilt Chamberlain's better at everything except winning championships. But Bill Russell had an incredible team. I think in basketball, it changed. Well, what's your thoughts? What sports do you think value numbers over?
To me, I do agree. Baseball is number one. In that, and Mo was correct. This is the only sport I've ever seen that's held on to its greats for as long as it has been. Basketball, to an extent, that's true. Because people look at you and your numbers, but if your numbers are lacking or tied with someone else, okay, how many championships did he win? Then you start getting more into accomplishments at that point. But that's a good point with Russell and Chamberlain. Russell played on some damn good teams, man. He played on some damn good teams, and I think that's the reason why he won. When you win championships in the NBA, it's happened. Don't get me wrong. The Chicago Bulls are proof of it. That Michael Jordan can win championships. LeBron can carry and win championships, but they also need help from a team. And both of them have gotten great team play in their championship runs. So I got to go with baseball first and then a little bit of basketball.
And we talk about stack squads just real quick.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're coming off of the era of stack squads.
Yep.
Nobody in basketball played with more stack squads than Bill Russell.
That's facts.
That entire Celtic team is almost in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to kill Bill Russell, but he played on the stacked of stack squads ever.
He didn't have to do a whole hell of a lot.
Before we get off of basketball, I got one more topic with basketball, but I want to ask you guys a quick trivia question I got Cottrell with yesterday. There's been 4 times in NBA history where a player has won the MVP, been first team all defense, was the scoring champion, won a championship, and led his team with finals MVP and led his team in scoring in the playoffs. It's been done 4 times in NBA history. Can you name the times it's been done and who did it?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I know there's one player that's obvious, but would you get behind him? You said one MVP, one defensive player of the year too, or
no? First team all defense, MVP, scoring title, scored the most in the playoffs, and won Finals MVP.
Damn.
So Jordan
would be
Olajuwon, maybe Olajuwon.
It's been done 4 times ever.
And I don't know.
I didn't say it's been done by 4 different players. It was done by Jordan
multiple times.
Jordan, and Jordan. That ends the GOAT debate, Control.
Thank you, sir.
That's better.
Agreed. That ends the GOAT debate. But I want to ask a quick question because we're about to transition to baseball. Before we let you go, Will, do you have an NBA or an NFL comp to a player like Mike Trout? We're just talking about numbers.
Damn.
We're just talking about what he does is kind of they don't care about his accomplishments. He plays on a terrible Angels team. I don't think his accomplishments are technically his fault because baseball is such a team sport because there's so many players. But can you find me an NBA or an NFL comp to Mike Trout? I guess an all accomplishments type guy that might not, I'm sorry, all numbers type guy might not have the accomplishments. I have a perfect one. Mo, I don't know if you have one because I know that you brought the question up. So, Mo, what's yours? And we'll give Will a second to think.
Right off the bat for me would be Luka.
Okay.
I look at Luka. Luka is statistically has been pretty dominant throughout his NBA career. He has done everything except win a title and win an MVP. But I would go with Luka.
Okay.
That's tough.
See, I think Luka's career is too young to go with him. It's just my personal opinion. And you're right. So far, it is Luka, right? He's done a lot. Maybe it might be a poor man's comp. It might be a poor man's comp, but it reminds me a lot of Dame Lillard. Maybe late in his career, Mike Trout will go to a winning basketball team and have an opportunity. But Mike Trout and Dame Lillard remind me of the same thing.
If it comes down to putting up stats, putting up numbers, but hadn't won anything, well, he has won, but not a championship.
Trout's never won anything.
Yeah, I know. James Harden, if you're looking at numbers and hadn't won a championship yet.
James Harden makes the playoffs every year. Trout's made the playoffs once.
But he hasn't been able to cross that barrier and win a championship.
That's fair. I guess we'll find out. Will, we appreciate you. What you got going on? Anything you want to share for you?
Every Monday night, we Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, we do the Sports Report podcast. Me, Cast of Thousands, talk about sports, talk about pro wrestling, talk about a little bit of everything. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, every Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern.
You did bring up wrestling. I'm going to ask you one last question as you're headed out. And the Sunday night, are we hearing "and new" or are we hearing "and still"?
Nah, we're hearing new. We're hearing new because if you don't take advantage of Cody Rhodes right now, you will never be able to take advantage of Cody again. He needs this championship right now. And you got to do it now. You had a chance to do it beforehand. You let it go. But this time, you got to pull the trigger for him to finish that story. Fans are going to revolt against you. They're going to be upset. And Cody loses any momentum he's built up going into WrestleMania. If he loses, he's got to win, bro. He's got to win.
Be sure to check out Will. Appreciate you, Will. Thanks for stopping by this morning.
Appreciate you, Will.
Thank you for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Everybody have a great day.
You the man. Mo Better, Mo Money. How about Will, man? Will was on fire this morning.
He did his thing. We really appreciate Will joining us this morning. Will brings it. So I love having him on.
I want to move into Major League Baseball and a couple just quick questions because you do have Chris, who is a Yankees fan, on the show. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, unless they made a comeback late last night when I was asleep, I think the Yankees lost their first game last night. Let me just double check to make sure they didn't make a huge comeback while I was asleep. I did have to get up early. No, they lost 7-0 to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They are 5-1. Zach Gallen beat Nestor Cortez. Good game. I mean, Yankees, you weren't going 162-0, but the Yankees starting off 5-1 and sweeping the Houston Astros in Houston. Question would be, what's more surprising to you? Would it be the Yankees' hot start, 5-1, missing Garrett Cole, or the Phillies' slower start? And once again, I'm going to get selfish on this show. Listen, you're going to give me the reins to the kingdom. We're going to have some Philly topics. Last night is actually, it's funny. We came up with this question before last night when the Phillies were 1-3 and the Yankees were 5-0. Now, last night, the world became a little bit more even. The Yankees lost their first game. Bryce Harper went for 3 home runs last night, including a grand salami. I think that both teams will even out, and I think both teams will be there. I don't think, and just given my personal opinion, I don't think the Yankees have the pitching to sustain a 162-game season. They better hope and pray that Garrett Cole is fine in 2 months when they reevaluate him. I don't think he will be. I don't. But I will say this. Juan Soto batting 500 to start the season is a great sign. And when you get him in Yankee Stadium with that short porch in right field, I think I predicted him to win the MVP before the season started, and I couldn't feel better about that prediction. Mo, your thoughts?
I think the bigger surprise for me is the Phillies' slow start. Because I just think they're the better baseball team. So it is a bigger surprise for me. But like you said, over time, we're talking about 162 games. The world will balance itself out. And while I'm impressed with the Yankees' fast start, and my partner will be the first to tell you how great the Yankees are with their fast start, I don't think what they're doing is sustainable because, like you said, you need pitching. You need pitching. Soto's been terrific. Matter of fact, he's been so great that you don't notice that some of their bigger guns right now are not doing well at the plate. And I think that, to me, a lot of people, when Soto came to the Yankees, we were, at least for me as a fan, I was wondering how that would work. Would he be everything he was billed to be? And I think he's been that and more. Now, I didn't know you predicted that he would be MVP, but right now, today, he's making that prediction look spot on. That's how well that he's played. So, yeah, I'm more surprised about the Phillies' slow start, but I do think things will balance themselves out because they are the better team.
I'm not surprised about the Phillies' slow start at all. They do this every single April. They are what you would call a summer team. They like hitting weather, the Phillies. And by the way, I just want to take a shot at Major League Baseball's list creators. They listed the Philadelphia Phillies as having the best bullpen in baseball before the season started. And it took all of 5 games for everyone to trash them for that conversation. The Philadelphia Phillies did nothing this offseason to improve their bullpen outside of get rid of Craig Kimbrell. Their bullpen is an issue. It will continue to be an issue. I don't think it's bottom 10, but it's not number 1. You guys are out of your friggin' mind. They got a guy in Sir Anthony that has control issues. They got Alvarado, who's their one piece in that bullpen that's reliable. And they got a bunch of question marks in Strom, Kerkering. People don't forget, Kerkering started last year as a single-A pitcher. Granted, he went on a great run and made it to the Major League roster and pitched in postseason ball. But let's not pretend this kid wasn't a year ago. He was riding the bus. It's funny to me how overhyped people make this Phillies team because they're so likable, because of the Bryce Harpers, the Kyle Schwarbers, the Trey Turners of the game. I think that Phillies team is not surprising at all. I think you'll see a lot of what you've seen last year, a team that struggles around 500 throughout April and that picks it up in June, July, and August in hitting weather, because that's what this team is. They're a hitting team. They're going to win 95 games, 93 games. They're going to finish second in the division to the best team in baseball, which I think is the Atlanta Braves. Nothing surprises me about that. Now, the Yankees starting 5-1 against the Astros, who I think the Astros have the potential to be a World Series opponent of the Braves or Dodgers. I think that's surprising to me. And I think the reason it's surprising is because they're doing it with makeshift pitching. Cortez, Stroman, like, they're not guys that you're like throwing the ball to every 5 days and be like, they're great. Not it. They're not it. So I think the Yankees is a little bit more surprising to me. All right, let's move on. We got some NFL topics to talk about. I love this question, and we talked about this in our chat. But Mo, where would you rank this quarterback class versus maybe the last 10 years? Where do you think this class looks like 5 years from now? When we're looking back at the 2024 quarterback class, and we're talking about Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix. These guys will all be drafted in the first 2 or 3 rounds. What would you say? What are your thoughts on this quarterback class and your overall opinions on it?
So I look at this quarterback class, and a lot is made of the guy at the top, obviously, and Caleb Williams, and rightfully so. But I look at the overall class, and I actually think this could be one of those classes, Gene, that 4 or 5 years from now, we're not just talking about these guys all being starters, but I think they could be stars at different levels, right? If
Okay.
Caleb Williams is everything that a lot of people project him to be, then you're talking about a superstar. You're talking about somebody who at some point in his career, they will mention with the Josh Allens, they will mention with Lamar Jackson, they will mention him even near that guy, Patrick Mahomes. But I think the overall class, though, when I'm looking at a Michael Penix and a Drake May, I actually think all of these guys are going to be stars at different levels. The only guy that I'm not sure about, and I think a lot of people love him. I think Bo Nix, I'm not sure about. I think the young man, his name escapes me right now. Cottrell just did a great breakdown from
JJ
Michigan.
McCarthy?
Yes.
JJ McCarthy.
I look at JJ McCarthy, and I said this to Cottrell, or maybe it was you. I said he reminds me of the guy who coached him when he was a quarterback. He reminds me of Jim Harbaugh, that kind of guy. He's a gamer. He's not a bad quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be a star. And I could be proven wrong. I think he can have a long career, but I don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback. But I think overall, looking at the class, projecting forward, I think this can end up being one of the top quarterback classes ever in terms of how well they all play.
Oh, me and you are on completely different sides of the fence if you think that. And Cottrell, look, I always kind of fade to Cottrell's opinion when it comes to college football because there's a guy that knows so much, right?
Agreed.
He watches so much tape. He is absolutely great at this. If you haven't checked it out, check out Real Recognizes Real. It's a great show breaking down tape of college players. But with that being said, I want to give my opinion, and my opinion differs from his. I think you have one superstar. I think you have one star, and I think you have one serviceable starter in this class. I don't think Michael Penix Jr. will be I think Tyrod Taylor or something of that nature. I don't think he'll ever be a real starter in the NFL. I'm not a Bo Nix guy. I don't think he'll be great. I think you'll have a superstar in Caleb Williams, a star in Jaden Daniels, and then you're going to have either Drake May or JJ McCarthy being a serviceable starter. So I think it's an average class. It's not great. It's not terrible. We're not looking back at this class and saying, well, we had Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. We're not saying that, but I don't think this is anywhere near the Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, class that they had, right? Or you say one of the greatest quarterback classes ever when you go from Elway to Marino with Jim Kelly in between. I think that there's a lot of guys in this class that just won't really ever pan out the next level. I am not a JJ McCarthy believer. I've said this numerous times. I think the kid's a bust. And I think anybody that trades up to get him, I say the same thing I said about Mac Jones. I don't think Mac Jones will be great at the next level. He could be okay in the right offense. Now, I think Kyle Shanahan has proven to everybody out there that you can make a okay quarterback, even a bad quarterback, look good in the right system. I'm not saying Brock Purdy's a bad quarterback. I'm saying that he can take Mr. Irrelevant and make him look good in the right system. I think all these guys have the ability to be good in the right system, But if we're talking about where they're going to be drafted, Chicago, look, as much as I love Caleb Williams, Chicago is a quarterback graveyard. Washington is going to draft a quarterback at 2 with the 32nd best offensive line in football. You think that kid's walking into the right situation? New England doesn't have a weapon that you guys can speak of. And the Minnesota Vikings, granted, you have Justin Jefferson, but how long? I don't think that these homes for these quarterbacks are San Francisco. And I truly believe that this class will be okay. It'll be average. It won't be great. It won't. And everybody likes to overhype classes. I think it'll be okay. Be okay.
So do you think it's going to be okay because of their ability, or do you think it's a combination of their ability and where they're drafted to?
I think it's always a combination, right? So like Trevor Lawrence, everybody's seen his ability coming out of Clemson, right? But when he got drafted by Urban Meyer, you watched what a train wreck looked like. Now, granted, the next 2 years with Doug Peterson, he's looked better. Now, has he completely gotten to that superstar level yet? No, he hasn't. But situation matters, right? CJ Stroud gets drafted into a perfect situation with Bobby Slowick, who's a young offense coordinator, and CJ Stroud shined. The guy looked incredible. Jordan Love got to sit 3 years learning the offense behind Aaron Rodgers. A lot of these guys, situation matters so much more than their talent. I don't care how talented Justin Fields is. He was never going to succeed in that situation in Chicago. That situation stinks. You hired a defensive coordinator as your head coach when an offense coordinator they already fired and didn't give him a weapon until his last year. Yeah, I'm good. I don't want that situation. And look, there's not a lot of things I agree with that Coach Prime says, but I agree with him saying we're not going to certain situations. My kid's not going to certain situations because they're graveyards. They're graveyards in the NFL. And I think Chicago is a quarterback graveyard. Now, is Caleb that special that he can get out of that graveyard? I'm sure he can. I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on. We got a couple other topics to bring up, fun topics. But off-season moves, NFL. Out of the big teams that are expected to compete, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Eagles, Lions, Packers, Niners. What do you think the best or worst off-season moves have been for those teams? I'll start. I think, once again, Browns. Sorry, Cottrell. Browns are okay. Shameless plug. Saquon Barkley going to a team that has an offensive line and a coordinator that runs the football, and Kellen Moore, will be a great offseason move for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Buffalo Bills, I'll give them the exact opposite. Not trading and moving on from Stephon Diggs, but letting their entire secondary go and the cap hell that they're in, that would be my worst move of the offseason. So Eagles with Saquon, one of the best moves. Buffalo with their offseason that's been absolutely terrible. I think the Chargers had to have the offseason they had. So I'm bringing them into the equation. But I love Mike Williams going to the Jets. And yeah, I threw in the Jets. I threw in the Jets, Cottrell, because the Jets are going to the damn AFC Championship game if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. Book it. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. They revamped the offensive line. They added Mike Williams. The Jets are better than the Browns. Let me ask you a question, Mo. For this year and this year only, what team do you think has a better opportunity to go to the AFC Championship game? The Jets or the Browns?
Oh, it's easy for me. It's the Jets because I already know what you're going to get from the quarterback. I already know what you have talent-wise on the outside. They just added Mike Williams. So you just gave Aaron Rodgers another weapon. He's got a run game that he can go off of. They actually added to the offensive line, even though he's older. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, To my left, I feel a little bit better about the situation for my blind side. So they've also got one of the best defenses in football. So I like Cleveland, but I love the Jets if you're comparing the two.
I completely agree with you. I like Cleveland too. I think Cleveland's got a good defense. I think the Jets defense is better. I think Cleveland's got a decent quarterback. I think the Jets quarterback is better. I think the Browns have a good receiving core. I think the Jets receiving core is better. I think the Browns have a great running back, but coming off an injury, I'll take Breece Hall right now over Nick Chubb. And that's no slight to Nick Chubb. He tore every ligament in his knee. He might not be ready for the season.
Right.
I will take the Jets situation for 1 year, not 5 years. Aaron Rodgers doesn't got that much time left. I'll take their situation for 1 year over the Browns. Just an opinion. Sorry, Cottrell. We're not all into your Browns. Mo, what do you think the best offseason move was for any contending team?
So for the Niners, I thought bringing in Leonard Little was great because I think as a situational pass rusher, he still has great value. So I thought that was a big move for them, a bad move for them, in my opinion. But I know it's about money, letting Eric Armstead go, because I think that he's a much more disruptive force defensively than Leonard Little will be for them. So I thought I was disappointed in that, but that's a money game. The Niners are cap strapped. So you have to, this is one of them points where you have to start making those kind of moves, right? Yep. And this is before they make a decision on giving Purdy money, because that's going to happen eventually. And then you're really going to have some problems going forward. So I thought that was a great move. I don't say this very often about this particular team, but I think Dallas letting Pollard go was a good move. I think it was a great move, because that experiment of making a change of pace back, a feature back, it didn't work, and it wasn't going to work. So I thought that was actually a good move, letting him go.
I just think the Dallas Cowboys are stuck in an area where Dak Prescott's got $60 million in the books, and they're going to let him play out the season. So they're cap strung. They haven't signed anyone. They've lost multiple players. I think they've had the worst offseason in the NFL. Now, granted, letting Pollard walk probably was a good move, not pay him. But do you really feel better about a backfield of Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott as a 1-2 punch? I don't think that. You got two aging, decrepit running backs. Sorry, I don't feel good about that. And that's if they sign both of them. I think that the Texans made a lot of good moves. I think the Jets adding Hassan Reddick to their defense was a great move. A guy that's been to the Super Bowl. I think Hassan Reddick will bring another dynamic to that defense. I think there's a lot of good moves in the NFL, a lot of teams. And I think Odell Beckham Jr., if he signs with the Miami Dolphins as a slot receiver, will be the best move of his career.
Oh, I love that move for him, because I don't think he's a 1 or a 2 anymore at this stage of his career. But to be able to play off of those two speedsters in that offense, he'll have his most productive season in years. I think the Chiefs losing or trading away Snead, man, that's a tough one, because you develop that kid, he turns into a Pro Bowler. And you let him go. On the flip side, though, adding a guy like Hollywood Brown, who's not a dominant number 1 receiver, but he does upgrade your receiving room. So I like him as a deep threat. He can take the top off the defense for them. So I like that move for them. The Snead move is tough, because in an NFL where passing is at a premium, you've got to have guys that can win one-on-ones defensively, and Snead was one of those guys.
I think the biggest move, but by them bringing in Hollywood Brown, is now you don't know what's going to happen with Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is in a lot of trouble with the law right now.
Correct.
And I think that, I think already the Chiefs have Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson that can play the cornerback position. But bringing in Hollywood Brown, it was supposed to add a complement to Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, not replace what Rashee Rice did last year. I think Rashee Rice, being in trouble with the law is a huge issue for the Chiefs. It was supposed to add to their team. Hollywood's going to look great with Patrick Mahomes. He's got a guy you can throw that deep ball to. I know he's not Tyreek Hill, but he's definitely a guy that can stretch the defense and that can hit the home run. Rashee Rice was supposed to be your possession guy. They still need a possession receiver, and they don't have one right now. I think Hollywood Brown will be a much better version of Mecole Hardman or Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's what he was supposed to be. But got to draft a wide receiver. They got to draft a wide receiver. They got to get Mahomes a little bit of help at that wide receiver position.
What do you think about Derrick Henry with the Ravens? Do you think that will have any impact, or do you think Derrick Henry is closer to the end?
I think Derrick Henry would have an impact with a different team. I think it's a round peg square hole thing. I think Derrick Henry is a guy that needs to run 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage in a single back type set. And Lamar Jackson is going to want to run out of that read option situation where Henry's not going to have the ability to get his legs moving and churning upfield the way he should. I think it's a bad fit. I think that they signed a running back that will help them in the red zone, take a little bit less punishment off of Lamar Jackson, but that's all I see Derrick Henry as, is a good red zone running back. I think it's terrible for Baltimore. I think I would not have invested that type of capital in him.
Is that the same kind of fit? And you can appreciate this. You would know this better than me, but is that the same kind of fit that DeMarco Murray was in Chip Kelly's offense? Because they did the same thing. DeMarco Murray is a single back deep or deep eye back he's a straight ahead runner. He's a one cut runner, and they put him in that read option, and he's not built for that.
Mo, that is literally the comparison that I gave the Derrick Henry signing when he signed on Wire to Wire. Exactly to a T of what I said. I do want to end with a really fun question, and maybe the listeners can get involved. And I love it's a great question, so I want to end with it. What is your guilty pleasure classic sports movie? Like it's now you can't say like a great movie. You can't say like what is your guilty pleasure sports movie that you'll watch? Mo, obviously you came up with the question. I would love to hear yours.
I'm going to put it out there. This is not a movie that's going to win an Academy Award. This is not great acting, but it is entertaining. This is my go-to guilty pleasure sports movie that I've watched more times than I can count. It's called The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. Stars your guy, the doctor himself. Julius Erving is the main character. His character's name is Moses Guthrie. It is a movie for its time. You can tell by the clothing they wear, the cars they drive. Look, Doc was a baller in that movie. He had the classic car phone, the huge car phone. There's a scene in the movie where he's out on a date with a woman, and she wanted to know about him. And he took her to a basketball court. They're dressed up to go out to dinner, mind you. He took her to a basketball court, pulled out a basketball, and started playing a game of one-on-one to himself. But as he's playing the game, he's explaining to her what makes him Moses Guthrie. He's macking to her while playing basketball. Only Doc could do that. It's my go-to movie.
I love it. Now, these are not guilty pleasure movies. These are great movies. Moneyball, Major League, you can't use them. My guilty pleasure movies, I have one of two. One of them is Trouble with the Curve. Love that movie with Clint Eastwood as a scout for the Atlanta Braves. And it's cheesy, but it's fun. But the other one, I don't even like admitting this out loud, is Summer Catch. You ever seen Summer Catch with Freddie Prinze Jr.?
Yes. And what's the young lady's name? It's
Jessica
Timberlake's
Biel.
wife.
Jessica Biel.
Yes, that's a good one.
I love that movie, and I don't like admitting it out loud, but I love it because he's a lefty hothead pitcher. That I was a lefty hothead pitcher. And like, I don't know, man. Part of me's like, this could have been me. Probably not, obviously. But that's mine. We're out of time. Tune in to Wire tonight. We'll be going over our sports character bracket, going over our top pass catchers. Looking forward to the show tonight. It's going to be a fun show. Mo, close us out.
Thank you guys for joining Gene and I this morning. We appreciate you guys so much. The Wire to Wire network is growing, but it's growing because of you guys. So it's your shares. It's when you follow us. It's when you talk to your friends and your friends' friends. We appreciate all the support that we get. Wire to Wire network, check us out.
Mo, you the man. Nobody can do it better. He's not just Mo good. He's Mo better. We are signing